Better get this on. Yeah.
Now we're really talking. So Chase, this is such a pleasure, by the way, man, to have you on here, because it just seems like yesterday I was in my early 20s traveling around the country watching the 2017 Missouri Tigers play with every last dollar I had, man. It's just 13 years goes by pretty quick, doesn't it?
So quick, and it's fun to look back and kind of see how that's affected my life now, and really how special it was then.
So many people, because Chase, a little bit about us here and our brand. We're finishing up work on an SEC football documentary where we traveled around and talked to so many former players and so many former Missouri players, Sean Weatherspoon and so many more. But the sentiment from so many players, and we're talking about guys that played in the NFL just like you did, they always kind of go back and say, in hindsight, when my career's over, I look back and I identify myself with those 4 years that I played out with those guys at that university. Would you say that's kind of the case for you as well?
Well, I got cut 12 times in the NFL and was with 6 different teams, and never for 4 straight years with the guys that are all there. There's so much turnover in the NFL, and I mean that hits the nail right on the head. You just build a bond in college with at least for me, and it sounds like a lot of the other guys that you've talked with, that you don't really get to in the NFL because of the business aspect of it.
So tell us kind of what you're up to these days. As I understand it, you're back in the more peculiar area, and tell us where kind of people can find you and what you're up to these days, man.
Yeah, so my wife and I, my wife is from the Ray-Pec area as well. We've dated since high school, and so living back in Peculiar, and working. We have 3 kids, 7, 5, and 1, and I started into financial advising. That's something that I figured that I needed to know more about, and it also gives me a little bit of flexibility of not necessarily a 9 to 5, but still putting in hours, and there's a lot of people that need that help, man. It's one of the most important things in life, and I think one of my coaches in Atlanta said it best. The opportunity to play in the NFL, it provides you with so much, and the paycheck being one of them. And he said, it's money's not everything, but it's right up there with oxygen. And and that's right. It provides you with a lot of opportunities and a lot of options, and I really want to be wise with the money that I've been given to steward and help people do the same. So I'm working with a company, BMG Advisors, in Kansas City. Our office is right down on the plaza, and yeah, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and you can look me up on there.
Well, I hope people will definitely do that. As you've been away from the game now, kind of officially for about 4 years, what is, when you look back, and you talked about being cut as many times as you were in the NFL. You were a 3rd-round pick, though, the Cincinnati Bengals, and with a lot of promise. You're coming off being an All-American. And I remember early on, that was, I think, the year the Bengals were on Hard Knocks, and I think that there was something in there, one of the coaches saying, like, you're from Missouri, you don't know how to block yet, or something like that. I mean, what was the transition like for you? Is that something that is true to form? Because I mean, the tight ends in that offense, I mean, you and T. Rucker, and I mean, you guys are playing slot receiver basically. So was there some transition there for you?
Yeah, that was huge, and going right in, like you said, on Hard Knocks. I think my tight ends coach had played up to that a little bit, and if you watch the Hard Knocks that year in 2009, I probably got cussed out on every show. But yeah, I mean, we had Rucker and I. What an opportunity at Mizzou to catch passes, right? But didn't really get our hands in the dirt that much. And both being drafted to Ohio teams in the AFC North, where it's kind of a ground and pound and just grind it out style of play. I don't think it was the best fit for either of us. And it was tough, and not that I wasn't unwilling. It was just, I think the system that we were both put into, and just the lack of opportunity to do what we were really good at.
Well, what I think so interesting about the kind of the '07 team is how the team was basically built on people like yourself, people like Lorenzo Williams, Sean Weatherspoon, Denaro Alexander, guys that, and of course Jeremy Macklin, but he was a 4-star recruit, but guys that came in that were a little unheralded as far as recruits go, that came in and really, built this foundation. It didn't happen immediately. You came in and played a lot as a freshman in 05 when you guys went, I think, 6-5 and made it to the Independence Bowl. So what was that like, kind of coming in and building that foundation that wound up leading and coming to, for it doesn't always, you come in and you blindly are putting in this work and trying to build this, not knowing what the outcome was even going to be at that point.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. I mean, you just have to have that blind faith and kind of trust the fact that, okay, I've been recruited by this group of coaches. I somewhat know the names of the guys on the roster, and I've had my visits and gotten to know the guys on this sky high level. I just have to go off of that. There's a lot of prayer that went into that decision, and praise the Lord for me and all those people there at that time, from the top down, Mike Alden, and then Gary Pinkel, our strength staff, our training staff, our equipment staff, everybody was doing the right things to set us up for success. And then the players there, Brad Smith, he was a great leader my freshman year. We had a lot of guys that you have already mentioned, Chase Daniel. And we just had a solid group that put in the work and kind of knew what it took to be good, that you're going to have to work, you're going to have to grind, you're going to have to pick each other up, but also hold each other accountable. And I think we did a good job of doing that. And the biggest thing that I always tell people is the selflessness of that team. There's a lot of balls to go around, but if somebody didn't have a big game and we still won, they weren't hanging their head. And that was one thing that I really respect about the guys that I played with.
Well, when you look at that offense, by the time 07 comes around, Chase Daniel, as a junior, you guys are humming along. You and T-Ruck are in the playing tight end. Will Franklin, you got Tommy Saunders who come in as a walk-on from Kearney, Missouri. You guys, Jeremy Macklin, Darnell Alexander. I mean, this collection of offensive weapons and talent is something that I don't know that we'll ever really see again. It was just so special. What was it like, just that offense, knowing what you guys could do? Was it almost just like, okay, I liken it to kind of the Chiefs today, where it's like, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to have a drive where you don't put points on the board. You know what I mean? It's almost becomes like where you have to score almost every possession just because you're supposed to. You have the ability to. What was it like just kind of playing with those guys and in that offensive scheme? Because Gary Pinkel had to completely change everything he had been doing up to that point. He switched to the spread when that wasn't what he was about before that. So what was it like?
Yeah, it was exciting. Like you said, every play there's a chance for a highlight reel play to be there. And so for me it was like, okay, every time I go out there I have a chance to, number one, catch a pass, and if not catch a pass, right, if it's a run or maybe a play designed for somebody else, I have a chance to block for that person to get the opportunity to score. And I think our coaches did a good job of just, pounding that into our heads is, even if you're 20 yards down the field, you still have to get the block for the guy that, what if he springs it? Do you want to be the guy that's on film that says, hey, we only got a 20-yard gain. That's great. But if you would have just got your block, if you would have just done your job, right, then we could have had a touchdown this play. Right. And so, and again, like going back to the accountability, that's kind of where we held each other is, hey, this is the standard that we want to be at. And if we want to be at the top, we got to hold each other accountable and put in the work that produces this outcome.
Well, when you look at kind of how the season ended, is it a bit surreal for you to kind of look back to that? You're a Kansas City guy. You go to Ray-Pac High School, play for Tom Cruise there. Who I think just finished up his career, man. What a career it's been for him. But you're a Kansas City guy. You wind up playing Kansas at Arrowhead to, for the right to win the division, to be number one in the nation at that point. And then to win that game and then to not be able to play against Oklahoma, you get injured against, and against Oklahoma, taken
Mhm.
out of that, and then to see Kansas get to go play in the Orange Bowl while you guys go and just kind of blow Arkansas off the field. When you look at this, the ending of that season, was it just an emotional roller coaster because everybody put so much into that Kansas game, and then all of a sudden a week later it's over as far as the national championship goes, but you still have the opportunity in the Cotton Bowl? What was that kind of like for you?
Yeah, a little bit, but I think the coaches did a great job of just like, hey, look, we can't control these things, right? Like we're just going to do our job. And for me, it sucked. I got hurt on an extra point attempt in the Kansas game. I'd had some bone spurs and some ankle problems that actually started in the first Oklahoma game that year, and just couldn't plant, couldn't really push off on that foot, and uh, just more. I think better for me to let somebody else have that role where they
Mhm.
could have actually made some plays during that game instead of just taking up space on the field. And that, I mean, that argument could be made either way, but that was the decision that we collectively made as a team, and training staff and coaching staff and myself. And um, I don't. What if, right? What if I would have been full health? I don't know, but still ended up being a pretty awesome and memorable year.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, and to go in there and really, put the icing on the cake by knocking off a pretty good Arkansas team that, again, I don't know if they were fully in it, but it is what it is, and we whooped them.
Well, yeah, we talked to Peyton Hillis about that in the offseason, and he pretty much said the exact same thing that you did. He just said they whooped us. That's it. I think he's used that exact same quote. So for 2008, the focus is more heavily on you because Martin Rucker moves on. He graduates, and you're kind of the featured tight end. You're an All-American that year, and but you guys suffer a heartbreaking loss to Oklahoma State. And we've talked to a lot of players that said, of course we didn't quit on the season after that loss, but there was so much hope and so much expectations that loss took some, air out of the sail, so to speak. What was that like for you? Do you kind of agree with that losing that game on that stage and then, kind of going to Texas the next week, and it was just a downhill situation from at that point? Still won 10 games, still won the Big 12 North.
Yeah,
Good
yeah,
season, but not what it maybe could have been. Was that loss? Was
yeah.
that
It was a little bit deflating. I would still argue. I got called down on the 1 yard line on a screen pass. We had to kick a field goal, and I believe that I scored. And I would still argue that had that been called the way that I thought it was, I mean, I think we would have won. And I mean, they were a good team that year. They had a really good team, and for whatever reason, I don't think we let up, but it was a tough game for us. And I mean, going forward, we did all we could to just continue doing what we could control. And again, coming down to Texas, who was a great team as well. I think they made it to the national championship that year, I believe.
Yeah,
Um,
that was
they, they barely.
I think that was the year they wound up getting in some weird three-way tie. I think Oklahoma still wound up in the championship. That's when they lost
Yeah,
to Florida, but they wound up in a three-way tie. That was the
right.
Crabtree and all that. There
Yeah,
was a
that's
lot.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I was at that game at Texas too. And it's like before I mean, my seats were so high. It was incredible. It was right after they'd done that renovation. By the time I got up there, it was like 21-0, I think. And it was just, I remember
yeah,
a lot
yeah.
about that. And it was, I think we finally got in the end zone. Denario catches a touchdown in the corner, and they review it, and they overturn it. It's just like, this is just not, nothing's going to go
Yeah,
right.
not much went our way.
That's how it goes.
I do remember having myself a pretty good statistical game.
See,
Unfortunately, that was about it.
what does the program, what does the university mean to you today? Because since that has happened, Missouri's on its third coach since then. Barry, it didn't work out, for Barry Odom, and now
Yeah.
Eli Drinkwitz is in there, and we've seen a lot of promise for that. What when you have all these years, 12 years of looking back, what does the program mean to you today?
Oh man, again, kind of going back to where we started, right? Like I I was extremely blessed to be surrounded by a group of people that really picked me up and held me accountable, and that did their job the way that I expected myself to do my own job. I still keep in touch with a lot of people down there. Columbia is an amazing city. I try to get down there a little bit, take my wife and kids down there for maybe a game a year or just an event a year, so we can get back there. And I mean, I think that we're still headed in the right direction. Um, as far as an organization and football team, I like Conzo Martin and the things that he's trying to do for the basketball players. I know that, across the board, I think we have some really good coaches, Brian Smith and the wrestling program. Um, but I mean, growing up a kid in just south of Kansas City in Missouri, and believing that I'd probably always, be around the Kansas City area unless there was, to end up with, unless there was something that I felt like God was just saying, this is where I want you. I mean, for me to go to Mizzou and have the success that we had while I was there, that means a lot. And I believe it's given me a lot of opportunity uh, to continue, speaking life into people, and also in my career going forward.
And I think for someone like yourself, as recruiting is such an important part of especially somewhere like at Missouri that's in the SEC and has to compete with so many big programs. But someone like you is a true testament to the fact that you can be from this state, you can go play for the state school, you can have success, you can go to the NFL, you can accomplish all your dreams, right here. I
Yeah,
mean, is that something that you talk to people about?
I do. When given the opportunity, to some young kids, I mean, I want to tell them, Mizzou's not the place for everybody, right? Like, I want it to be. I want all the best recruits to go there. I want you to do what's best for yourself. But, being from here, being from the state, and going to the in-state school, and again, like myself, if you're ever going to be back around this area, like you do have all the opportunity in the world to get done and to meet the goals that you have set out for yourself, whatever those are, right? And football, it's gonna end someday, and if you're going to come back to any area in Missouri or surrounding Missouri, right, you're going to have the support of the Mizzou fan base, right? If
Yeah.
as long as you have respected the name on the front and the back of your jersey.
Yeah, and that's something that is maybe changing in the college football landscape a little bit. The transfer portal, and it's so easy to just go play somewhere else. I'm not playing enough. I don't like this. It's so easy to just go somewhere else and start over. What do you see when you look at kind of the game now
Yeah,
and how it's changed a little bit?
yeah, it's a fine line, entering the transfer portal or just staying put. I think there's a lot to be said for staying put and working through something hard. It really teaches you a lot about yourself, a lot about what you're capable of doing. And, the grass isn't always greener. It has, there's been cases where it's worked out. And on the other hand, I feel like there's a lot more cases where I mean, you're still the same guy, like there is opportunity where, man, this system just isn't what I thought it was. And I don't fit the system, right? And maybe you find the right system, but there's always somebody coming up, the next recruiting class, no different than the NFL. There's another draft class next year where they're going to try to replace you with somebody better. And and if you can stick it out, right, those 3 4 5 years, whatever it is for you, I think that there's a lot to be said for that, and a lot of support that you'll continue to get after that.
Well, Chase, you're just a tremendous ambassador to the university, and I'm just so glad that things are going well for you and that you're back here in the state of Missouri and and are being successful and happy and everything like that. It was a true pleasure watching you play, and now being able to be see it from this side, the media side. It's like, man, I wish I was a little older so I could have actually covered that team, because there was so many special people and so many people that we've talked to since. That's like, wow, it's just a collection of people that it's just really hard to put it into words, because there's so many different personalities, yet you guys kind of united for a common goal. And I know that's something that you'll kind of be able to keep with you forever. And that's a really powerful thing, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, very, very special. I still keep in contact with a lot of those guys, and I mean, don't don't say it won't happen again, because I believe we're close.
Yeah, the St. Louis side. I mean, Coach Eli Drinkwitz is really knocking out of the park in a lot of ways. I mean, he's getting that St. Louis side. Just Mookie Cooper, the receiver from Ohio State, transfers in today. We got to get the Kansas City side, kind of going there as well. And I know there's a good program right there, probably a few miles from where you're sitting. So we gotta kind of round this thing out. We got to get Kansas City back in there too. We got to make this kind of, get both sides rolling, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of talented kids in this state, and if you can get everybody bought into one common goal, there's no telling where it can go.
Well, Chase, I tell you what, we could talk about this stuff for a long time, because it was such a foundation for me. I mean, I came in, when Corby Jones was down there, and my dad taking me to games, and to see that through. And being a Missouri fan is not always easy. It's just, it's not, I always say that there's not a single bandwagon Missouri fan out there. They just don't exist.
Yeah.
Because you got to buy in. And when you have moments that come to fruition, like it did in 07, and it just makes it that much more gratifying. And I think we'll see more times like that coming forward. But I hope everybody will reach out, especially anyone that has any financial planning needs. You can follow you on Twitter at Chase_Coffman. Be sure that you do that. Chase, you're just, again, great guy. We got to get your your Zoom signage game going up there a little bit in your office there. We need to get you a sign like mine or something to kind of dress it up back there. I got
my family pictures.
There you go.
Yeah, my kids.
See that
actually a football that I had. I'll pull this up. This football that I had up here, it was just sitting in my basement. It was from a Seahawks game where I scored a touchdown. And it got stolen out of my office a couple of months ago, when COVID was kind of a little bit more strict, and somebody had came through the office when things were kind of shut down and took it.
Well,
but luckily somebody tipped me off and was able to get it back on Facebook.
Wow. See the power of social media. That's incredible. Well, that's awesome, Chase. Again, thanks so much, my friend. Stay safe and stay healthy, man. We'll definitely be in contact. All good things going forward, man. Thanks again so much.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Clint. Thank you for your time.
Anytime, brother. Thank you.